all this emphasis upon black man and white does emphasize something which is here, but it emphasizes it or perhaps exaggerates it, and therefore makes us put people together in groups which they ought not to be in. I have more in common with a black scholar than I have with a white man who's against scholarship. And you have more in common with a white author than you have with someone who's against all literature. So why must we always concentrate on color or on religion or this? There are other ways of connecting men.
I'll tell you this. When I left this country in 1948, I left this country for one reason only, one reason. I didn't care where I went. I might have gone to Hong Kong, I might have gone to Timbuktu. I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than had already happened to me here. You talk about making it as a writer by yourself. You have to be able then to turn up all the antenna with which you live, because once you turn your back on this society, you may die. You may die. And it's very hard to sit at a typewriter and concentrate on that if you're afraid of the world around you. The years I lived in Paris did one thing for me. They released me from that particular social terror, which was not the paranoia of my own mind, but a real social danger visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody. I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, that the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians, and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
Let me ask you guys a question. You guys immediately say white people, okay? And then you guys immediately say people of color. There's multiple people of color. There's multiple types of white people.
Yeah, like
there's also like multiple like instances of white people, generally speaking, European people, like people of European descent, oppressing people of color of like various different origins, ethnicities, backgrounds, etc. There has always been in the United States a power dynamic of European descendant people, white people, on people of color, people who are not of European descent.
Okay, so let me ask you something. What about white Americans versus Italians? Why were the Italians living in the same communities as the people of color?
That's just one example though.
Italians are still white. You have to understand that.
This isn't about...
when you have lighter skin in America, right?
I'm agreeing with you. I think
people of color do not. So defining white people doesn't do shit, or it doesn't do anything.
Yes, it does, my man.
Why does it? Why do we have to define white people for cultural appropriation?
Let me ask you something.
Because there is no white culture.
There is no French culture. There's no Italian culture. There's no German culture.
In America,
there's no Russian culture.
Can you tell me that today there is an American culture?
American culture.
That people appropriate.
A culture of Americans?
Right now, can you tell me that there's an American culture that people appropriate?
No.
No, you cannot, because there is.
I don't know what you're talking about though when you say American culture.
Exactly, because it does not exist.
It's not about America. It's if you look at cultural appropriation, if you look at America as a melting pot of all these different peoples, right? Are there Cubans in America?
Yes.
Are there Mexican people in America?
Yes.
Okay. Are there African American people? There's white people. There's Italians, right?
Yes.
Okay. So cultural appropriation is not about an American culture. Why would anyone appropriate an American culture if we're all Americans? Or if you're all Americans? I'm not.
Okay. No, that's a good point. So let's talk about this. So basically, in the past, places in power. So okay, let's go back. So
Spain, Spain conquered all of South America.
Spain, Rome,
like
Greece,
what the fuck?
UK, all of these places.
Yeah, but all of
and
they conquered all of South America.
Okay,
so Spain conquered all of Cuba. That's why I'm there.
But this isn't a discussion to me about conquering, about whatever. It's about cultural appropriation. Okay?
But the reason
which relies on the context of all of these.
But the reason we don't have cultures for ourselves is because white people came over here and did some shit for us. Like they came over and took our people from Africa. They came over and colonized Native Americans.
Like, what do you mean about like the idea of not having a culture? Like, do black people not have a culture in America?
I think that we barely have a culture in America, and it has been taken away from us, and it has been broken down, and it has been dissected, and it has been diluted because we are in this white world. And I can tell you right now, everywhere I go, even in this room right now, there's only 2 black people in here. There is not enough black people at NYU. There's what, 6% or something like that, which is fucked up. I have 27,000 undergraduates, 6%, and even in Canada, it is the same type of dynamic. No. I can tell you this from personal experience from talking to black people in Canada. It is the same thing. I know you're white. It might be different for y'all talking about race because y'all might be doing that because y'all might be a little nicer or something. I don't know. But it is the same experience for people of color that it is. And you being white and not seeing that is what you're bringing to this table right now.
Look. Let me tell you something. My mom. See, the reason that you just said that is the reason that I have to specify that my mother's Lebanese. And that my father's a French-Canadian background. If you studied your history, you would know that French-Canadians were a heavily discriminated group in Canada.
Okay, but that's okay.
Okay, so what I'm
going to talk about heavily discriminated
hold on.
I'm fully understanding you.
I don't give a fuck about if they're French. I don't give a fuck if they're Canadian. You know damn well black people are way over discriminated.
I agree with you.
And we're going to continue discriminating, and to the point of which where even black women and black men are probably the most discriminated in anywhere. So it doesn't matter if your mom was Lebanese. It doesn't matter anything. Both of my parents are white, right? Both of my parents are white. I'm an adopted black male in America. Do you understand that? It doesn't matter where the fuck I come from, where the fuck I live, wherever I go, wherever I stay. I'm discriminated against. My culture is appropriated. I cannot go anywhere in this world without having a target on my back and on my chest. Just the color of my skin. I don't have to open my mouth. I don't have to look at them. It's because I'm black. You never understand that. You're trying to make connections that your mom was Lebanese. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, I'm telling you right now, the privilege that you are not understanding and that you are denying to the point of which you're bringing in your background of ethnicity is just ridiculous. Like, you have to check yourself before you enter the conversations about cultural appropriation and enter this room.
Sam, can I ask you something? Like, what do you think? I'm actually curious as what you think my opinion is. Listen, I have no doubt, right, that I am very privileged as a human being, right? Like, I've come from a pretty decent enough family that I got to go to NYU, got to be at the school and have this discussion with you. Secondly, I realized the color of my skin. Like, I realized that it must be terrifying to be an African American man walking down the street at night and see a police car in a rough area. You don't think I realized, like, that scares me just thinking about that, like being in your shoes. I'm in complete agreement with you. But the fact that you just go, you're white, man, like, I think there's more to me than just being my skin color or being white, you know?
Okay, so guess what? Now you're feeling how we feel. Because that's exactly what the fuck happens when I walk out this room.
I agree you, but I'm not your enemy, man. I'm not your enemy. I'm here to have
when you walk into the room as a white male, you're automatically my enemy. When you walk into the room as a white person, you are my enemy because you are in the way of me getting somewhere. You are in the way. You have been the roadblocks. You have been the police officers. You have been the teachers. You have been the oppressors. You have been the colonizers. You have been all of that.
Now let me ask you something. Are there any black police officers, any black teachers? And have you ever seen a movie, Daryl Davis, Accidental Courtesy? Do you know who Daryl Davis is?
Yes.
What does he do in life?
It doesn't really matter.
Daryl Davis is an African American musician who goes around and he converts KKK members from the KKK by talking to them. These grand dragons of the KKK, these leaders, he goes around to them and he befriends them. He says, they go like, we've never actually talked to a black man, you know? We're ignorant, you know? And then through their, you know, learning about this man that although he's black, he's still human. They're still the same. They become friends with him.
Why is it
the responsibility of the black man to convince the
white
man?
It's not.
Can I finish? Sorry. Why is it the responsibility of the black man to convince the white man that he's not dangerous?
That's where the fucking problem is.
That's literally the root of the power dynamic. Like the fact that I, as a white person, even asked black people, like, is this cultural appropriation? Like, even that is kind of fucked up, you know?
But why? You guys are so, don't you see? Don't you hear that you're so filled with anger, though? A lot of you.
Why can I not be filled with anger?
You can be filled with anger.
Why does that make you so uncomfortable? No, listen.
It doesn't make me uncomfortable.
But then stop talking.
Yeah,
then listen, that's one thing you have not done. We have it on recording.
Out of you because you feel uncomfortable.
I don't feel uncomfortable.
You have reached a level to the point at which where I have to be defensive. I did not want to be in this conversation. So that means that you can sit down for a second, you can check your privilege because there are also other people in this room that would like to speak. So thank you. So you can let them respond to you and we can listen. Please.
Aurora's been wanting to talk.
Yes, thank you. Hello. I'm like completely able to understand both sides of this. Okay, just kidding. Not completely able to understand both sides. Completely able to understand one side. Kind of learning how to understand another side. Am able to sympathize with the other side 100% because I am, although I am white passing, like I do have like a minority side to me, which is like I feel fucked up saying it, but like it's true and like I'm sorry, but it just makes me sad because like what I was saying before, you know, like if I go out and I wear like whatever the fuck I want to wear, you know, like shit that I want to wear in Miami, or like, and if I'm listening to shit that I want to listen to, like music that's like Latin or like whatever, I don't want to be like questioned by another person in the Latin community about whether I'm allowed to do that or not because I am white passing. It is very hurtful. Although, like I would say that I guess I deserve this, but I mean I didn't do what my ancestors did, you know? So I just wish, I know it's super like idealized, you know, I like, oh, this perfect world where we could all just forget about what our ancestors did and we're able to fucking move on from that and just like do what we want to do, you know? Like there's no hatred here. Like if we were just able to fucking like forget about all the shit that has gone through in the past. The only reason why we're all so fucking heated about everything is because of the shit that went through in the past. Can everyone agree with that?
Yes.
The shit that was put
Not in the past. It's happening.
True.
We can't reference past separate from the now because it's a thick now.
True.
It's
No,
a very
100%.
thick now
I'm
where
wrong with that.
everything has deep influences and people do not want to recognize that.
Because what you're saying, like what you brought up is like your mom is Lebanese, right? I 100% could not have figured that shit out from looking at you. I couldn't even tell you were Canadian from looking at you because automatically whenever you walk into a space, if you brought anybody from anywhere across the globe, if you walk into a room, you're a white person. You cannot deny that fact.
I understand I think you're wrong in your assumption about me. I understand why it is this way. What I feel is it doesn't have to be this way. And we talk a lot about a systematic racist society, right? But a systematic racist society means the laws are racist, the institutions are racist. Are the laws and institutions racist, or are the people who decide on the punishments for those laws racist? Are the people running those institutions racist?
Okay, but
so when we look at the
that's
same
a little
urban
stretch.
communities,
Stop.
the same poor urban communities where African Americans live, Asians live, Asian Americans, and Hispanic Americans live, why is it, let me ask you, that the rates for dropouts in these high schools for African Americans and even white, because there is millions more poor white people in America than there are poor black people. That is just statistically true. But there are also a lot more rich white people.
Good way of saying it, because it's just like, some of the stuff you were saying is just out of pocket. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm just gonna say it flat out there. And it's what every white person will say to me in discussion about race or anything. Like, they will try to bring in like certain events or like their white friend or like this black person has done this. But like, one black person
doesn't stand for the whole
doesn't
group.
do. Like, I don't care about one black dude that's talking to the KKK. Okay. How about the like millions that were killed by the KKK? Ain't nobody say shit about them.
And why should
it's just like
it all goes back to what
I
you
understand
said.
that you have a very conflicted, like right now being in America, it's difficult. I understand it's not like Canada. I understand that like you as a white male coming from Canada there probably isn't as much of a racial, like there isn't as much racial tension in Canada because of just kind of, I would say they're kind of laid back attitude towards most things. And I think America at this certain point has reached like a peak of, it might even be like the peak of the century of just racial tension between white people. And when I say white people, I mean white Americans. Also, anyone who has pale skin in America is considered white to me, because for me, I'm considered black to anybody in this world. Like, they're not gonna come to me and be like, bro, you look a real Asian right now. It's not gonna happen. A person, and you're telling me that they're the people that are the problem right now?
You've said
But the system that you're talking about right now,
It's one and the same.
Yeah.
It depends on what you are.
I didn't know that.
You're saying that we can't, that you're attacking people in this system. That we can't attack the system, but the people have been facilitated.
We're not attacking
There's not a
you, we're
single
attacking the
person.
ideas that
I respond to you guys? Can I
There's not a
respond to you guys?
single person
Can I
that has
respond?
lived
Yeah,
for
like-
400 years by themselves
Could
and
I
has been like,
respond?
I fucking hate black people. Like, it's never been one person.
Could-
It has been the mental
Could I respond?
ideologies
You-
that have been passed. And also, you did just say you do not interrupt people and do not talk over people. But every word that I said, you just said, can I respond? Can I respond? Can I respond? You will get your turn.
Alright,
Isn't it an argument
Okay, are you
about-
done, Sam?
I'm just saying, if you
Okay.
gonna keep interrupting people, we gonna have a problem.
Continue. Okay, Louis, say what you're saying.
Look, Sam, I'm trying to respond to you. You said the 13th Amendment is racist in nature by saying that people can work in jails without pay. Does that also apply to white people in jails? Because I know plenty of jails where there are Caucasian people who also work without pay.
Didn't you just say that the population of prisons are majority?
I didn't say
majority
that.
black?
That is true.
It's a
but
fact.
That
You
is
can't
true.
Say but, say and.
And that is true, but that doesn't mean the law is racist just because of the
The
population.
law was set up.
Do you know what $1 million block is?
The law was set up so
Okay.
that they could transfer from slavery to
To a systematic way of
prison.
incorporating
Well,
slavery.
I don't even know what this fucking is called right now because my head is spinning and I'm about to pass out.
Okay.
But whatever, convict leasing is what it's called. Okay, that's what they did. Slavery, convict leasing, mass incarceration, and now we have this system in place now. So that is what this amendment has done, and it has not been changed.
Okay, Louis, respond.
Okay, so let me ask you something, Sam. If we were to kill everyone, right, in the system, everyone is dead right now, and we get a whole new group of people in the system, and they have none of our history, would they look at the 13th Amendment as a racist amendment?
Okay.
That hypothetical can't even be
Yeah,
considered right
you
now.
can't
We
take
can't
it
consider
into
this.
I think,
a-
I think
Very
it's like
idealistic.
Let me ask you about South Africa, right? Okay? In South Africa, they had a system of apartheid, right? Complete separation, complete just racist. Literally the most racist system you could think of, where they were treated like just completely terribly. You know, even after slavery, for how many years they were completely separated, weren't allowed to use any of the nice facilities, anything like that.
Yes,
and yet, when apartheid ended, right? Why was it not a bloodbath? Why wasn't it an all-out war? Because the leadership in power at the time realized, let's not just attack these people and hate these people for doing this to us. If Nelson Mandela had got out of that prison cell,
Bro, do you
They
realize
did.
the systems that are still in place in South Africa? Like,
I-
do you realize like how many people?
What color is
let me
Nelson
talk-
Mandela
Dude,
again?
okay.
He's black, right? Facts. So let's just say, if we had a black leader out of slavery, this shit would not have happened. If we had a black president in whatever, from president number, I don't even know, from Abraham Lincoln
Like
to
it,
now, Barack Obama, I'm sorry, he don't even count. Okay, we need a radical black president. We need a black Senate. We need a black Congress to get shit done for black people and people of color. And listen, the thing is that black people, it won't just be about black people. That's the thing that I think is very interesting, because the white mentality of these lawmakers is well, it's not even the mentality of white, it's themselves and their constituents who are primarily white, because that's who makes up the majority of this country, so they don't really care too much about the black people. So if we put like a black person in, they would realize, oh, there's also other people that we need to bring up to where we are, because I think black people and people who have been oppressed in minority groups kind of have this like affect of this oppression and struggle that they have realized and kind of connect upon.
so
It's just,
do you agree
it wasn't
with
really relevant to the conversation.
do you agree with Malcolm X more than Dr. King in the sense of you need a black state?
I don't.
Did you
I don't
read
want to
the
talk about this.
Constitution
I
of
think,
Black
Right
men?
I think the
Constitution.
center of this.
Also,
It's the black
No,
man.
I'm asking you though. Malcolm X, you know, he believed in, you know, the black state, like it was necessary not to
so
work.
did Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King did
was
not
a
believe-
King was a
Yeah.
fucking radical.
Where are you guys insane to think he believed in black and white separation? His "I Have a Dream" speech is that I believe in little.
But
black
that's his
people.
only speech that got popularized because it was
Martin
it was sane
Luther
enough
King-
for everyone to accept. So
Martin-
everyone was like,
and-
oh, he's nice and gentle now, so now we can accept
now let me
this.
ask you guys: did Martin Luther King not go? Did he sit in a room and say, you know what? The white people need to come to us to give us our rights. We shouldn't fight for our rights.
I
We shouldn't
think
approach the white people and say, let's talk to
The
them.
important thing is that both of the people that you just mentioned were killed because they were trying to get equality in America for black people. Okay?
No matter how much
it
radical.
doesn't matter how radical you are. For the point at which they stood up, they were shot down. That by itself should be the end of this conversation. It doesn't matter what I think about on Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. Because I really could not agree with it. Like I disagree with both of them so much because they did it. This is another discussion. But the point that really matters is not that I have a dream speech. It's not about these racist laws. It's the fact that if we stand up in America, we get shut down. And the fact that you are so stuck on these certain things right now, and we're supposed to be talking about cultural appropriation. Like we've gone so far from this topic, and it's just gone into like a spiral of this yelling. And I understand where you're coming from, where you feel attacked and you're getting defensive, but I think we should stick to cultural appropriation.
Look, I think the fact that we're here in this room is really what needs to happen. We need to have a dialogue and we need to have a discussion in order to make change. We can't just, no one can sit on their ass and expect change. It's never going to happen. You can say like, let's have the group in power change that, but if they're really, so against that change, you gotta be willing to stand up and fight for it, and not fight with your fists and your weapons, but fight with your words. Who is leading the world? Who is the leading artist right now of the 21st century? It's Kanye West. That is a black man. You guys are in a position now where like artistry is now defined by you guys. You guys have started empires worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Look at the Jenners. It's pretty much completely made by appropriating black culture. Like, I think it's the time, to have a dialogue and have a discussion, but not hate each other. Let's not have a talk as white people and black people. Let's just have a discussion as people, as just human beings, and try to see each other. And obviously, no one can walk into someone's shoes completely, but they can try to, and that's what we got to do.
There has been a lot of things said in this beautiful discussion, and I feel as though that some of the things I have said personally might have been disrespectful or felt as if I was attacking you. I'll apologize now. But in these discussions, especially around race, there's a certain form of uncomfortability that is very present. And you can feel it in the room almost more than the heat right now in this room. It's this uncomfortability that is just sitting in everyone's chair with them. And I think if you want to have a discussion as people, you have to be able to get past this uncomfortability. Now you're saying that what I think that everyone has done in this room is spoken like with their opinions and what they thought about us, but it's also very difficult to have a shouting match, which I do realize is probably also my fault. But I don't really have anything to say about the topic. I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope to be available for the second installation. You can go.
And this white supremacy and white people that we keep on referencing, and this vague power dynamic that we're talking about, has originated from colonization. That's the root of all of this, and global domination. So we can talk about French, Italian, Dutch, whatever European ethnicity you are, those were the global dominators in the colonization stage of the world. So specifically America, why it always comes up as to a race or us versus them thing is because we're standing on Lenape Native American land right now that was seized through colonization and murder and all of the above. So why it's an us versus them thing is because it's because it is
because they started.
Hold up. So the reason why we can't have it as just people is because no one has been treated as people equally throughout our history. And the idea of a colorblind conversation is denying his blackness and her blackness, and my partial Latinism and her partial Latinism, and her, what do you identify as?
White.
Her whiteness, and all of these views. So we need to incorporate it, but we can't. Okay, so that, and then
just not as enemies.
Yeah.
I didn't mean people, I just meant, let's not do it as, I didn't mean people, I just meant not as enemies. Let's just look at it as people, not as oppositions, That's what I want.
That's what we're doing.
So overall, I hope we do a second installation of this segment. It's been good sitting down with everybody and talking.
I just think that, I wish that we lived in this fucking perfect world where none of this shit was even something that we would have to discuss, I understand all the frustrations are so valid, all the hatred is so valid, all the feelings that everyone feels at this table all of them are so valid. And I understand that it's very hard to express them without feeling the emotion, I don't even know you guys very well, but I already know that you're just as intense with people that I am and he is and us. So, I mean, I really appreciate that, like, at least I have a voice in this, you know? And that I'm able to participate in this conversation, because, I mean, although there are tensions that are running high and shit, I feel like at the end of the day, I walk away from this and I'm like, okay, I understand one thing more, you know? I participated in another conversation that was bountiful, and that I did learn things, you know, as a Latin woman, and as a white woman. So, yeah.
So yeah, I just want to reiterate sort of what everyone said about like thanking like everyone for just being in this space and like saying what was on their mind. Yeah, it got heated, but I think that's just like as people were saying, it's just an indication of the fact that this needs to be talked about, which is something like that we've all said at some point in this discussion, is that this needs to be something on an individual level we need to talk about. We also talked about this in this discussion, the idea of like systems, and that's another, like that's the other side of it, is that even as we have these like really personal connections and as we get heated with each other and tell each other our truths, there's still the fact that as we speak, there's people being incarcerated, there's people living in situations and people dying because of what they look like. And I think as we move forward, we need to know that like as we talk, we're discussing reality as reality is happening. And so that's why I think like I'm super excited to be back on the next installment and just continue sort of hashing what is going on.
Similar kind of to what Sam said, I want to like speak more broadly about the conversation as a whole. And I think the fact that people are addressing the fact that they are happy to come back for the second installation of this conversation, which hopefully will have a little bit more structure and guidance than this one, says a lot about the kind of space that we've created here today. And I think acknowledging that there's discomfort and emotion that exists in these kinds of spaces is like really healthy and positive. And like acknowledging what Louis said, like you have to have these kinds of conversations, you know, like this is what has to happen if we want to make this happen. So I really appreciate everybody sitting here for the last like literally 2 hours having this conversation. And I think like I'm so grateful to be in a space at a school surrounded by people who are willing to kind of put themselves out on the table and make themselves really vulnerable. I really appreciate that. So thanks.